Good afternoon, Bill. Good afternoon, dear listeners. And we are back today for episode 21 of The Power of You. Bill, it's wonderful to be with you yet again. And here we are. A new month, a new topic is on the top of my mind. So today I wanted to kind of talk about this theme around the seasons of growth. And the reason I bring this up, yes, we are changing physical seasons, but also we as individuals, I've noticed throughout my own growth journey, very distinct seasons in which we all go through and when it comes to growing. And the reason I wanted to bring this up today was because I think as humans, we can spend a lot of time, one, either not understanding which season we're in, and then two, like if we do know what season we're in, we can fight it, and that can cause a lot of angst, upset, frustration, and just negative emotions that we needn't necessarily experience. So I think today I wanted to give a bit of kind of exploration around this kind of theme of growth happening in seasons, and as always, just see where we land. How does that sound?
Perfect.
Great. So I guess to maybe start off, I can share some of my insights and reflections, and I'd be keen to get your take on this. So along, not just starting TTM over the last 3 years, but also when I look back on a wider lens, I've noticed that the pattern of growth seems to follow these very distinct kind of cycles. And often that can involve, like a shedding stage. So like letting go of old habits, old beliefs, old thought processes, sometimes people, environments. And like this shedding stage can feel quite challenging because it just feels like everything's going wrong, that we're losing people. And, in that stage, we can kind of start to panic. So I've noticed that there's this stage, and then we kind of go inward. And this is where once we let go of things that are no longer resonant, we start to work on ourselves, right? And when I say that, what do I mean? It's we start to look at ourselves with like uncomfortable clarity. Like I call these introspective seasons, or a bit like winter, right? It's nobody necessarily loves winter, but it serves a purpose, right? And this is where we upgrade our thoughts, our habits, our beliefs. And following that, I've noticed comes a kind of external. After this internal phase, we move into more of an external expansion in our physical reality. So after going into that inward kind of cocoon phase, we re-emerge, but it's not a case of just like summer, it doesn't go from winter to summer. There is like a transition period. So then I notice in what I call the spring season that, this is where our energy rebuilds, we recalibrate, we get used to who we are as this next version of ourselves before we then come into full bloom, if you like. And that's where everything's happening, all the opportunities are aligning, you're here, there, and everywhere, and everything is kind of magnetizing towards you. I've noticed these very distinct cycles when I look back now. Again, it doesn't always make sense in the moment or at the time, but when you look back, it's quite distinct as to what that cycle looks like. And I guess I wanted to share my observations and get your take, Bill, on, one, whether you resonate, and two, what your understanding is of this, or growth of what your understanding perhaps is of growth cycles.
Well, everything is cyclical. It's not just the seasons. And the seasons of growth is a great phrase. We have biorhythms also, which are more like a rapid change every day. They cycle also up and down. So a given day in the month, you may feel very low energy, and another day in the month, high energy. And then these longer cycles. So there's, ultra fast cycles, there's medium, slow cycles, and there's very slow cycles. And all of them are baked into the universe. They're all part of the teaching process, that the universe is, in this classroom, the lessons that we've signed up for this tour of duty are being taught to us. So sometimes we need to assimilate, absorb, process a tremendous amount in a relatively short period of time, or we need to go inside in order to recapture a sense of enthusiasm about what's going on after we've been hit by a whole bunch of things that we didn't like. And some of this appears to be coming from forces beyond our control, the universe and so on. But when you go into one of these contracted phases, retrograde phases, the first thing that you want to do, I think, is to open your mind completely to what you did to bring you into that phase, what part you played. The causality is very complicated. There's never only one cause of a thing. Any given outcome is kind of a vector that emerges from the coalescence of many different vectors. So the fact that you're now in this cocoon phase is because of some of the things that you did that backfired, or some of the things that are going on that you just don't know how to deal with. You're just at your wit's end. You've tried to adapt. Nothing that you've tried instinctively, intuitively worked. So now you really are retreating to try to figure it all out, so you can go back in with new enthusiasm and direction and in control of the situation once again, as opposed to feeling like you're being thrown around by forces that are completely out of your control and you could never control. So recognize how you got yourself into whatever situation, and the situation didn't necessarily work out the way you wanted, or you might go into this introspective phase as a result of other people around you that you care about having, like, just lost their job or something that makes you very sad, and it doesn't directly affect you other than your compassion and caring about somebody else. That can also put you in an introspective position where you want to try to get to some kind of a closure on it. So give yourself the time and the space, whatever the conditions are. When you need to get away and be alone, you better take that opportunity, because if you try to just keep going, you're going to be half there. You're going to be very distracted. You're not going to be in the flow state. You're not going to be doing good stuff. You might be adding to the problems that you're trying to run away from. A lot of people in my business life, I've got this tech company that studies people's motivations, subconscious motivations. And a lot of the data I'm getting shows that millions of people now are practicing escapism to a tremendous degree. They're like avoiding the things that are question marks in their mind and their emotions. They're avoiding them. And so whenever they have free time, the first thing they do is distract themselves with either the smartphone or the TV or something to distract them. Anything but considering their own life, as if, to consider one's own life is so displeasing. It's hard for me to relate to that, because, to me, considering my own life is very pleasing. It gives me a chance to up my game, see what I could do better. I love life. Life is a wonderful thing. Why would I want to run away from it and practice escapism? And yet we're talking about more than half the population, according to my data. Anyway, so we shouldn't fall into the trap of escapism. The more we do that, the more we're pushing ourselves out of flow state and into emergency oversimplification procedure. We're becoming more robotical. We are repeating old mistakes. We keep doing the same things over and over again. We're doing things by rote. I always say this in this situation, so I'll say it again. Even though this person has heard me say this too many times, I must be boring them. Anyway, so the first thing you have to do is accept the need for alone space and take the time. Then be ready to write notes down, because you're going to get too many ideas at once. There'll be all kinds of things you want to think about, and they'll all be relevant. So if you don't write them down, you'll go out of your mind. You'll be frustrated, and you'll drop stuff, and then you'll be worried about having forgotten. You just had a great idea. What was that idea? So be ready to take notes. Take very brief notes, but make sure you'll be able to read them. Don't write so fast that you won't be able to decipher it. Or if you're typing it, that might solve it. Although I find writing is more natural and goes faster, and typing can be a distraction, bringing you back into the electronic, time capsule bubble that we get sucked into. And also, if you're on the computer, you'll get a notification or something. So I suggest writing with the old-fashioned way, but do it any way you want to do it. Take notes. Call it journaling if that makes it sound more something or other. Anyway, so note the ideas that you're getting and what direction they're going in, and take a break as soon as you can, like a minute after you start, 5 minutes after you start, 15 minutes after, whenever. Take a break, because walking around any place else, you're going to get new ideas that are going to put synthesis together of the ideas you've just written down and more. They'll go quantum leaps beyond during the break. And then you're going to want to rush back because you want to write more notes down. That's fine. Or take the notepad with you while you're out in nature, if possible. So as you do all this, the first phase is mostly just watching what you're processing. What am I processing? What's getting my attention? What's getting my gall? What's bothering me? What's exciting me? Where do I want to come from? Where am I going? What's the desired end state? What's blocking it? All of that stuff, those are the questions that you want to ultimately answer. And when you come out of this a day later, a week later, usually you need at least 3 days. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be in retreat for the whole 3 days. You could be in retreat for 1 day and then kind of edge back in a little bit at a time. So you're not really back to full, but you've got like 3 days, very good to do on a long weekend, 3-day holiday weekend. But you may not have the choice, because something may happen in your life that you just have to do it now. You have to consider it, because things are piling up and you don't know where to go. So it'll probably mostly be done in 3 days. Now, that doesn't mean it always will. You may be blocking things. You may not allow yourself to consider certain options. That's off the table. That's non-negotiable. Take a look at those. Make sure they're really off the table and non-negotiable. And why are they non-negotiable? What's so important about those things? Is it somebody else? Your father will be upset, or whatever it is? Why are they non-negotiable? Often you'll find that the things that you thought were non-negotiable are the secret escape into a whole new wonderful next phase. And you and I talk about growth because we know that growth is where it's at. Growth is where we're going. The whole game here in this planet is about growth, evolution, to become beings given higher powers, more godlike powers. So we have to grow in order to do that. I mean, right now, frankly, the whole human race has to grow just to be human. We're operating on a subhuman level, even though we're humans. We've fallen into this hierarchical society where some people are up and some people are down. And the people who are up want to keep the other people down just to keep them up. And we put each other down even if we're all at the same down level, we put each other down to give ourselves the appearance internally that we're up, just because we put somebody else down. I mean, this is all subhuman. Mm-hmm. So growth is where it's at, but some people may be looking at it through a different lens than growth. They may be looking at it as happiness. I just want to be happy. Some people may say, I just want to have a peaceful life. I've had too much agitation. I just would like some peace. They have different end goals, different ways of, summing up what their summum bonum, their highest good is, what they're trying to achieve. That's okay. We're all individuals. Celebrate the individuality. It's okay. Be who you are. In fact, discover who you really are. Because remember, 95% of you is subconscious. So you're in a process of discovering who you really are. All of us. And we're discovering godlike parts of ourselves. And we're discovering parts that we don't like. Dishonest parts, frightened parts, cowardly parts, whatever those parts are. And we're overcoming them. And then there are these external things that are really metaphors for the internal things. What we're really doing is we're just working on ourselves, but we're working it out in this playground where the universe has these other ways of giving us messages, signals, and stimuli, which it would be awfully boring if we were just alone by ourselves, working on ourselves, and we wouldn't get as far. So the interactions with other people is helpful for all of us. So long-winded answer. Letting go is something you said, and letting go may be the secret to life. If you had to put one thing more than anything else, you might also say it's learning to enjoy the passage of time. But there's a lot of ways you could sum up in one short sentence the major themes of what works in this reality. But letting go I call it the hidden switch. There is within us the capability to let anything go. Anything, no matter how attached we are to it. We just have to be in the right mood, in the right space, and we have to be alone. We have to be really there, present in the situation, not distracted. And we have to want to really open our minds to all possibilities. And then we can look at something that we would consider to be absolutely, I must have this. And then say, if I get it, great. If I don't get it, I'm not just going to ruin my life. I'm going to adapt, and I'm going to be happy even if I don't get this. I'm going to let it go. Let it go. I've let it go. And you get a feeling inside, physical, not just emotional, but actually physical, that you're different now. You really have gotten off that Jones. You're no longer addicted to that addiction. You've broken that habit. Sure, you still prefer to get it. Like, let's say it's a Nobel Prize. You'd still like to get the Nobel Prize, but the odds are you're not going to get the Nobel Prize. And you can't drive yourself crazy because you didn't get the Nobel Prize. Or it might be just going to bed with that person. I'm obsessed. I have to have that person. And we're so close now. We're dating. We're on the third date. I think she loves me. I think he loves me. Let it go. Just let it go, just so you're not attached to how it comes out, so you can watch the movie and enjoy it however it comes out. It'll probably come out better if you let it go. Let it go in advance. Let it go as soon as possible. Let as many things go as soon as you can. Then you'll be non-attached. And then all those things will come to you without striving for them.
Yeah, I mean, covered a lot there, right? But I think key themes are around, you're talking there of detachment, and we can get into that. I think firstly, though, you talked about like it's kind of an expansion and then a contraction, and how that is a natural process. And many of us enjoy the expansion, right? Like that's great. It's all good. Like, new opportunities are coming towards us, new people are coming towards us, like new habits. We're upgrading our avatar, if you like. And that expansion period feels great. We love it, right? But what doesn't always feel as nice is this contraction period. And you shared there, that can happen. Like everything in life is cyclical and everything is happening in cycles. And you shared about like shorter cycles, right? Of like going in or within for a day, 2 days, 3 days, right? But there's like rest is part of the work. Everybody's heard that, right? But I think that's kind of a terminology for this contraction phase. And yes, it can happen, over a short period of time. But when you're actually zooming out, there are periods of contraction that happen a lot long, like for a lot longer. Like I'm talking months of contraction. I like to say this: the bigger the contraction, the bigger the expansion on the other side of it, right? And if you're somebody right now listening to this going through a huge contraction period, like if you can move forward in divine trust that actually on the other side of this is the huge expansion, it will, I'm not going to say it's going to feel easy, because it's not, right? Like I know that I've had periods of contraction, some more intense than others. I would say probably the last 18 months gone through a really intense contraction, but I've had it for a few months. I've had it for, like a month or so, but there's different levels of this. But each side, like every time you go through this, on the other side of it is a huge expansion period. So while the contraction doesn't feel good necessarily, because it does, you feel like you're losing everything. You feel like everything is being stripped from you. You don't know who you are. Your identity is shifting and evolving. And it can feel quite scary as well, especially if you've not been through anything that extreme before. So, but you shared there about letting it go and this art of detachment. And I think this is where it's really, really important, because the longer we hold on to whatever wants to exit our life, the more we prolong this contraction period. The quicker we recognize, okay, like I'm in contraction, and there are signs, and I think we can share some of those with listeners. There are signs that this contraction period is happening. And the quicker that we learn the art of detachment and letting it go, the quicker this contraction can take place, so that we can get to the place that we want to be, which is in the expansion, right? And this contraction is serving a purpose, because who you are becoming on the other side of that requires you to let go of these old parts of yourself that formed your identity. And that can feel very alien, because you can feel like, who am I now? I used to be someone that was go, go, go. I used to be really driven and like motivated. But often what I'll find in these contraction periods is it's not that you have lost who you are, just sometimes the motivations or the kind of frequency in which your action was running upon is an old program. So say, for instance, if you're somebody, it could be you're really driven at work, right? But perhaps your old identity ran on a fear-based program, that ran on a scarcity-based program, ran on a need to prove. If you ran on these old programs, those programs need to shed. And it doesn't mean that on the other side of it that you won't be ambitious or driven, but the program in which you run from will be different. So basically, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's like a different operating system. And you talk there about the art of detachment and letting go. This creates more of a calm, grounded state of being. And as you said, you're not attached to it. You would still like it to happen, but you have let go completely of the timeline in which it will happen, if it will happen at all. And you become more focused in just enjoying the present and enjoying the journey. And, you know, I use that and like example of, it could be, you know, in your work, but it can also be in your hobbies, in your family life, whatever floats your boat. You said, you know, different people on here on earth, right, have different goals, right? For some it's a peaceful, calm life, right? Happiness can be the goal. It doesn't matter. Everybody's goal is different. I know you and I, it's about growth and elevating consciousness, and that's everything that we talk about. And I'm sure people that are tuning in will probably be similar in terms of like high performing. But irregardless of who you are and what your ultimate end goals are, these analogies or these cycles will still happen to you, just in varying degrees. And you talked about the external reality being something that we interact with to ultimately get to our end goal. And whoever you are and whatever your reality is showing you, it's related to your personal mission. So understand and trust that whatever is showing up for you in your reality now is for your learning and is for your ultimate growth, even if that's not your goal or desire, right? Your goal and desire could just be for peace and contentment. But know that in order to achieve this peace and contentment, like the signs and synchronicities are there, and it's part of your growth, whether that's a goal or not. So ultimately, I guess I'm saying, like, this contraction and expansion is happening to all of us, even if we recognize it or not. But I think what's key to our own internal happiness and ultimately our growth is to recognize what season we're in. And as you've said, practicing the art of detachment and letting it go, because we prolong our own suffering, we hold on. And I understand why, right? Going inside can feel scary, but it's not even just the introspection that feels scary. When we feel that we're losing parts of ourselves, and sometimes this is big chunks of ourselves that made us who we are, that can feel terrifying, right? But the more you go through this cycle, whether it's a short cycle or a prolonged cycle, the more you recognize and go through these cycles, the more you will trust that you will be replaced on the other side. You're going to still be here. Like, it's not, nothing bad is going to happen. It's part of the process. And actually, you can learn to enjoy that process too, because I talk about the seasons of the year, right? There's beauty in every season. Sure, like, nobody likes being cold, like, and in the dark for 6 months of the year. But there is also a kind of joy and coziness in that, when you can sit in front of the fire, watch your favorite program, like, you don't feel guilty for shutting the curtains at 4 p.m., right? There is a joy and a beauty found in that. And there is beauty in everything if we are looking for that. So don't avoid the contraction phase. Learn to recognize when it's happening for you or to you, but for you. And then embrace it. I think just like you would embrace the seasons of the year, yes, you might not like it, but it's happening anyway. So you might as well enjoy it. And the quicker that you get into that groove, the quicker you come out the other side of it. And ultimately, enjoyment can be found in every facet of life if that's what we want to look for and find.
I agree. Two things. One is it's difficult. It's harder for people who aren't resonating with the spiritual realm. And so many people today, even if they go to church or synagogue or whatever, still in their hearts, they don't believe that we're part of a benevolent universe that cares about us. The prevailing feeling is that it's a bar brawl, dog eat dog, and nobody up there's looking down and taking care of us or cares about us. That makes it harder. But those people who aspire to be spiritual, who call themselves religious, they should draw upon that and say, okay, I'm in a period now of pain and contraction. It's the winter of my life. Maybe it's just old age, whatever it is. It's getting me down. But God loves me. I would say, God is me. God is everybody. Everything that exists is God. So, of course, it's all loving itself. It's all love. It's made of love. So, it's easier for me to say this than to know that other people will find it easy to do necessarily. But just consider the possibility that the universe does care about us. And science has not disproven that. So it's possible. And from that point of view, whatever is happening is for our benefit. It's trying to teach us something. So the first question is, what is this trying to teach me? What's the lesson? Oh, maybe it's I shouldn't always be such a follower and not a leader. Or maybe I should not always be the leader. Maybe I should sometimes be the follower, or whatever it is. Ask the question of yourself, what is this trying to teach me? The second thing that is evoked by those words of wisdom you just spake is like 25% of the population is in this permanent contraction. They're on various kinds of mental control drugs, depression, manic depression, someplace on the spectrum. Neurodiverse is the nice way of speaking about it nowadays. But we're talking about 1 out of 4 people taking drugs to deal with a mental condition. Now that's only in the Western world where people have money for drugs. Out in the bush, probably nobody is suffering as much from mental problems. But anyway, a lot of those people don't believe in themselves at all. They have no sense of self-worth. And you can talk yourself blue in the face, and all of this just bounces off of them. They don't take it in. They hear it. They're not stupid. They hear that it makes sense, but they can't apply it to themselves. They just hate themselves. And that degree of apathy and lethargy and defeatism is something that they have to recognize in themselves and let that go. Let that go so that they can at least start in neutral. Get back to neutral.
Yeah, I'm almost seeing the visual right now of a swimming pool, right? And for these people, and look, I say these people, like I have been one of those people, right? Like I have been in that place, right? Where you're like the bottom of the swimming pool. That's I'm seeing this analogy of like a step ladder, right? So like I have been one of those people. I understand like it's hard for me to relate now because I'm so different, but being in that space where you just feel like everything around you, like you can't see clearly, you can't breathe. Essentially, I'm looking, the visual inside my mind right now is like a swimming pool, and I know when you feel that down, you feel like you're on the bottom of the pool, you feel like you've sunk to the bottom and you've no idea how to climb out. You don't know how to swim, you don't know how to breathe, and you literally don't know how to put your hand on the rung to get up the ladder. You don't even see the ladder. You don't even know that there's a ladder there, right? So when, like, I think the first stage is like actually recognizing you are on the bottom of the pool. Like that is like a first step, is to actually recognize that. And as you said, like there's medication and people go to doctors, people understand when they don't feel good, right? And we do, you know, in the Western world, we do rush to medicine to try and help us and cure us. And while that can help with physical symptoms, I always say, like, it deals with the symptom, it doesn't deal with the root. And like there is a cause, like there is a cause that is ultimately impeding our ability to see clearly. So not against medicine necessarily, but also teaming that with understanding or trying to discover what the root of that issue or challenge is really, really important. And I think you said there, it's in order to get to, we're not even talking about swimming, we're not doing the butterfly, we're not doing front crawl, but just like to one, find the ladder and start climbing out. In order to do that, you said about possibility, we need to be, it's not saying like that you need to believe that you can swim and do a fast time and or anything like that, but it's creating an opportunity or having like an open mind that it could be possible. And even if you're not open to possibility, can you be curious? Because I always say that curiosity like opens the door to open-mindedness. So I think curiosity is key there. And that might be hard when you're feeling in such a down place, but curiosity can be found in, like, I like to think of children, right? Children are intensely curious. They're curious about everything. Like I'm thinking of like my niece right now, and you know, she'll be like looking at like a plant or the ground, like she's curious about stones, she's curious about everything. And I think, obviously not saying we need to be like, obviously an amazing place to be is childlike curiosity with everything in life, but to even start with some level of curiosity. And I think what you said there is like that question, what is this trying to teach me? That is a form of curiosity, because you are curious about what the situation, what this interaction, what this person, what this experience is trying to teach you. So if nothing else, like the first step to trying to find that ladder and get out from the bottom of the pool is that question, right? Is what is this trying to teach me? Because that is curiosity. And if you can start there, that doesn't feel like such a huge jump. We're not asking you to swim back crawl or do butterfly and do the fastest lap of your life. But if you can start there, that is a manageable step. And if you can embed that question into your very being, I think I've personally experienced this. It is a fast track path to growth. And I think if nothing else, if you take that question, not just from this recording that we're doing right now or this podcast episode, but if you can take that into life, that is going to help you so much. And even look, we're human, we're not perfect. So there will be times that you'll sink to the bottom of the pool again and you'll forget that you have this question or this tool in your backpack. But if you can return, like it's not about being perfect, but if you can return to the understanding that you do have this tool in your backpack, which is curiosity, which is this question, what is this trying to teach me? Because that is the first step to one, finding the ladder and climbing out.
Yeah, I think even one-celled animals have curiosity. They've found curiosity in every species. It isn't an emergent characteristic in the higher orders, like humans. It's everything has curiosity, and it's built in. It's hardwired. It could have been what motivated the universe to do all this in the first place. You could look at curiosity as the search for novelty, something new. At any rate, it's a basic principle of everything that's foundational, curiosity. And the great thing about what you just said is that it doesn't depend on any assumptions about what the universe is. Doesn't matter. God, no God, doesn't really matter. What is this trying to teach me is a lens, a viewpoint, a useful fiction, whatever you want to call it, that you can apply in any situation where you feel momentarily, don't know what's going on. You're off balance. Something about the situation's got you concerned, worried, mixed up, unsettled. Anything that puts you in a sense of disequilibrium, come back to that question. What's this trying to teach me? It's kind of like a panacea. It kind of works in every situation.
Absolutely. And, we've talked there quite a lot about contraction and how a lot of us are in, when I say us, I mean a lot of the population are in contraction mode and haven't been able to claw our way out to go into that expansion mode. But on the other end of the spectrum, wanted to talk about a little bit more about the expansion phase, right? And then we'll get to the in-between, because I think that's key too. So the expansion phase, and like this, I think for me anyway, I'll be keen for your thoughts, Bill. You can categorize this expansion phase as like a natural energy buildup. Like you can feel it, and like it's not through force, it's not through push or hustle. It's what I imagine a plant feels like when the spring rolls around, right? It's not that the plant is pushing to get out. The sun is drawing it out. The conditions are drawing it out of the earth. And I share that, and you've probably seen this plants on the wallpaper behind me, because I like to think of us kind of like those plants, right? And when you go into this expansion phase, you will be drawn out, and it's a natural energy that wants to pull you out of that soil. It's not through you wanting to push or get out or like be in the sun quicker. It is a natural energy buildup, and you will feel it. And when we think about that expansion phase, like the in-between part of that is a bit like, and I don't know what it's like in the US right now, Bill, but I think it's a bit like the seasons, right? When you're in spring, you get one hot day and it's like 80 degrees, or for those in the UK, like 25 degrees Fahrenheit. No, Fahrenheit degrees. You get what I'm saying, right? So it's like 80 Fahrenheit, like 25 degrees. And then the next day it's down to 40 Fahrenheit or like 10 degrees. And it's these days, they kind of toggle, and you're like, oh my God, is what's going on with the seasons? It's like 4 seasons in one day, right? And I think of, when you think of the seasons of the, nature, when I think of the in-between seasons of our growth, right, you will have days where it feels like expansion, and then you'll have days where it feels kind of slow and like introspection and like contraction. So that expansion phase, I think we should kind of get your take on this about what this feels like. But for me, it's a natural energy buildup and this feeling of being drawn out, like drawn into an external facing mode. But in that in-between phase, you're not in one and you're not in the other, but a bit like spring, how it's a bit crazy. It can be like cold one day, roasting the next. Our growth is a little bit like that. And you'll feel you've got energy one day, you want to retreat the next. That's how you know you're in the in-between.
Yes, and you're preparing for the bursting out period. And the bursting out period is based on the work you did in the preparation period. You get everything set up, and when the sauce is complete, it kind of just all comes together, and bingo, you're propelled, and everything is going your way, and it's like you can't believe it. It's flow state is happening, and everyone around you is contributing to it, and you're winning the lottery, quote unquote, in terms of the things that you've set up to achieve. They're just coming to you effortlessly, and it wasn't really effortlessly. It was you did the effort, and you set it all up so that other people would win too. So now they're making it happen. So it seems like you're just riding along on a tailwind.
Mm-hmm. That's it. And this kind of relates to one of our earlier episodes where we talked about the role of preparation in our growth. And when you're in that contraction phase, if we trust that it is serving a purpose and that it is part of our preparation for this expansion phase, if we trust that that is part of the process, actually, the longer we're in this preparation, like the bigger the expansion is going to be. And I'm not going to take this quote for me because I think I heard it somewhere at some point in time, but it's like the work you do in private will always be seen in public, like eventually, right? And I think about that, when you think of the gym, right? If you go to the gym like every single day, or not every single day, maybe like a few times a week, and you don't see progress, you don't see progress. And then one day you wake up and you're like, oh, I've got a muscle here, or like my abs are starting to come in, right? Like that didn't happen overnight. That was the preparation. And ultimately, when somebody gives you that compliment, be like, hey, you've been working out, right? Like eventually that work that you've done on the days that you didn't want to, on the days that it was difficult, where you had to drag yourself there, eventually that is seen in public. And it's just like when we think of nature and when we think of the cycles of growth, when you're in that contraction phase or this phase of preparation, all the work that you did, which was unseen, right? and I think that contributes to why a lot of us don't like the contraction phase, because we're not getting the validation. We're not being seen. We're not being recognized. It's like going to the gym. It's hard to go when nobody's recognizing or saying, hey, you look good, right? It's hard to do that. But if we are able to embrace that season of preparation and just know that one day, whether it be a week down the line, 6 weeks down the line, a year down the line, if you know that eventually this work will be seen, that can help you even on the darkest days. And it helps me. So I think it's important to share with our listeners too, because it might help them as well.
I'm sure it will. Your enthusiasm for life is catching, fortunately.
That's the goal, Bill. That's what we're trying to do. So yeah, I think I think as we start to kind of come to a natural end of this cycle of our discussion, I think it'd be great to get your key insights, Bill, or reflections from our conversation today, because I think our listeners can take something from that.
Well, it's the central learning, I think, is to ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? And that could be even in good situations. It doesn't have to be just miserable situations. It could be anything during the day that surprised you. Why is this happening? What am I supposed to learn from this? Um, and then underneath all of this is the idea that you as a person, whoever the listener is, you're kind of a gift that you're unwrapping to yourself, finding out who you really are and what your gifts are to the world, what you can give to the world, and what you want to give to the world, what you can give to the world, what your mission is here, what your life's purpose is, something that's your passion. That, underlying our discussion, there's this end state, this idea that we're all trying to get someplace, and we have some idea about what it is, whether it's happiness or peacefulness or whatever it might be. And it's got something to do with growing and really growing into who we are, growing into the fullness of who we are, knowing that we are a seed of who we will be. And so getting from the current state into the fully bloomed self is actually a wonderful thing. The fact that we've been given life to do that in, as opposed to just being unconscious for eternity, that's nice. Mm-hmm. So as bad as you might feel at any given moment, consider the alternative. What if you had never been born at all? So, I mean, we all have wonderful gifts, wonderful world, wonderful friends, wonderful kids, wonderful parents, wonderful life. Looking on the gloomy side is okay, as long as you ask, why do I want to look on the gloomy side? What's drawing me to that? Is it a sense of I'm not capable of handling life? It's just too much for me, so it's much more comfortable to just be a gloom person? Okay, as long as I know that that's what I really want to do. But maybe when I see that that's why I'm doing it, then I don't want to do it anymore, because there's more fun to be had not being a gloom person. So those periods of introspection, contraction, we can call them whatever we want, those seasons of backing away, retreating, are unbelievably important to prepare ourselves for this realization of who we are and giving our gifts to the world. So there's nothing bad about it. We may not see it as glamorous or fun because we're taken away from the fun and all that activity, but it's fun too. Finding out who you are is also fun. It's a different kind of fun. Mm-hmm. Be open to it and keep asking that key question about, what is this trying to teach me?
Mm. Yeah, I have this saying, which is like, whatever you dream of, it's not in your heart by accident. And I think whether you like to think your dream is to be peaceful, it's to be calm, it's to have a happy life, it's to be successful, to have the Nobel Prize, whatever it is, I think it's not in your heart by accident. And ultimately it's about becoming the person that is capable of living that joyful life, that peaceful life, that successful life, whatever that looks like to you or to that individual. So it's about becoming, and ultimately it's about becoming this desired state of being. And ultimately it's about who we become on the journey, which again, it wouldn't be in your heart if you weren't meant to have it. So I think that's how I'd like to finish off today, Bill. But thank you for another wonderful episode 21 in the bag. Here we are 2-3 years later. We're going to keep doing this. It's the magic that will not stop, and we're grateful that you're here on this journey with us. So thank you, Bill, for another wonderful episode, and we will see you all again very soon.
Thank you, and thank you, listeners.